Are you willing to accept Christ's invitation to know Him more intimately, love Him more intensely, and follow Him more closely, and then go out into the world and live His good news? If you say yes, then you could be the 13th apostle. Join Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey, the odd couple of Catholic radio, as they ride the radio waves 2 by 2 to share the goodness, beauty, and truth of Jesus Christ and His church. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the 13th apostle.
All wisdom is from the Lord and remains with Him forever. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the 13th Apostle, where we explore the good, beautiful, and true of the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church and the books of the Catholic Bible. This is Tom Caffrey with my partner, Dan Duddy. How you, Dan?
Hey, Tom. How are you?
All right. How are you?
Doing quite well, thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. No bulletins?
No bulletins.
Our international audience?
Well, Maura's not here. I've been home for the last, not home.
Who's Maura?
Maura is my wife.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sorry that she's my wife. I'm sorry that I didn't say that she's my wife.
So in other words, you forgot about her. But you didn't say I'm sorry, I forgot about you.
Go. See, here you go. I forgot about her. You want to get that on this audio tape, and you're going to email her to make sure she listens to this episode. Now, she's down in South Carolina with Aileen, my daughter, and her 5 sons, and she went with Anna, my daughter, who has a second child in the womb.
Oh, wow,
and
nice.
They did a gender reveal down there. And
what did they assign it?
Oh gosh, not funny. But take a guess.
Twins.
Oh, well, no twins. Come on, have some fun. What's the gender?
Female.
Nope, it's a boy. She already has a boy. She's having another boy. Yes, that's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. I never knew the genders with Maura, with our babies. It was just the greatest thing ever to find out at birth what we were having. So I don't know.
Why do you think they call it a gender reveal, not a sex reveal?
I don't know. Why are you asking?
Because it's really a sex reveal. It's not a gender reveal.
You're gonna have to explain.
Are they referring masculinity and femininity? I'm having a little fun with you, but this is the problem with how this language has evolved. I'd say devolved, because for the longest time, in the gender only related to language, whether the word, let's say in Spanish, I don't know whether it's all Romance languages, but speaking of sex and gender and romance, but not that romance, ladies and gentlemen, where it would end in O for male and A for female. Or masculine and feminine for the O and the A.
Mm-hmm.
And then we eventually got to the point where we're talking, they really, so often when you see gender, people really mean sex. But I think people are afraid of saying it. So I don't think you're afraid of saying it. Well, maybe you are. I don't know.
No, I'm not afraid of saying sex.
You just paused and stammered.
Because I can't believe I'm having this.
Well, now I know why you're wearing glasses.
Why is that?
I don't know. You said you couldn't see. So anyway.
Well, that's why people wear glasses. Anyway, let's go.
So that's good. That's beautiful news. God bless them.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so something about Sirach, the book of Sirach, was on your mind, on your heart. I don't know. And it was from the readings last week, right? The first reading, the reading of the Old Testament.
Yeah, let me give you a little background on that. So,
please.
Last Sunday I dropped Maura off, my wife, at the last Saturday at the airport. I went to Saturday Mass, for Sunday, the Vigil Mass, and it was in the town of Perth Amboy, New Jersey. And I wanted to have some time. I didn't plan anything over these days. Maura comes back tomorrow, which would be Wednesday. So however many days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 4 days. So I planned nothing but to be by myself. I wanted to do a lot of self-reflection. And it hit me right away after dropping her off. I missed her right away. That my words, seriously, I have to straighten out my tone of the way I talk. And then I go into Mass, having not done any preparation, which sometimes I do, not enough, of what the readings are. And here's Sirach in the first reading, and it's all about speaking and just about everything we need to know about our words. And then it goes into the gospel, not to jump ahead, but that also comes back to the power of words. And there are so many verses. Paul is just really big on it, as well. I found in the Bible about the power of our words. So I said to you, why don't we do it? And we're radio guys, so our words are important. So it's something that we needed to reflect on, in my opinion. Here we are.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we did it, that we're doing it. I love the wisdom books of the Bible and wisdom literature, and Sirach is certainly one of them. And, it's interesting that the author's name is Yeshua, Jesus ben Sirah. He's the son of Eleazar, he's the son of Sirah. Think of the Psalms, the Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and hopefully I can get in that one famous or infamous quote or passage from Ecclesiastes. But these books come out of the exile, the Babylonian exile. And so a lot of wisdom literature is about great suffering. From the exile, God allowed Jerusalem to be sacked. The temple was crushed. They had no more liturgy or sacrifices. So the wisdom literature is filled with the struggles. There's beauty too, and there's praises of God, certainly. But 1/3 to 1/2 of the Psalms, the 150 Psalms, are the Psalms of lamentation. So this is humanity. Wisdom literature is humanity wrestling with life, and so often wrestling with God because of their suffering, their trials, and tribulations. Why, Lord? Why? Why did the classic? One of the three great questions after the first person experienced suffering. Adam probably said this. Why do the good suffer while the bad too often succeed? We're your chosen people after all.
Yeah.
So the Jews, the Israelites, we could say that. They have to when the temple was sacked and when Jerusalem was crushed. Think it's like the fall of Rome, and how St. Augustine was, and how he rallied the Christians, the recent converts, and a lot of them were going back to the pagan gods, thinking that the pagan gods had caused the fall of Rome because they had gone to the Christian God. And so Sirach is doing something similar here to rally the fellow Israelites, because in his world now, specifically in his world, the temple has been rebuilt. So just look at this passage. All this has come upon us, though we have not forgotten you, Lord, nor been disloyal to your covenant. Our hearts have not turned back, nor have our steps strayed from your path. Yet you have left us crushed. So, it said. So the background for wisdom literature so often is what's called exilic, the exile literature, and the different times of that period. And now Sirach, it's after that, and the temple has been rebuilt. And little does he know that it's gonna fall again.
Mm-hmm. I want to refer back a little bit to that, and that was great. But the wisdom that when I first went back to the church, it was Sirach that really, really drew me in the Adoration Chapel. I couldn't wait to go listen to the fundamental truths of what was written there and how realizable they were. I could make what he was saying, what was written, real, and I could move with it. I could understand it, and that's important in speech. Is that we talk with a simple speech that enlivens the soul. The inflections that we use, I think, are perhaps almost as important as the content, because it's the inflections that really touch the heart. Well, first of all, they show the heart of the speaker. And then when you show heart, you touch the heart, and it opens up the heart. And I notice that when I give my talks, that I have to be really cognizant of the inflections that I'm using and look at the eyes and the movement of the audience to see if I'm getting there. And then the content combined with the inflections, with the volume, the ups and downs, when that matches the passion, then we really have something really, really good going on. But as Paul says, it must be wholesome. Whenever we open our mouth, we have to take responsibility, hold ourselves accountable to what's coming out of our mouths. And the best way to do that is to make sure that we're doing everything we can to have a pure soul, because it's the words that are reflective of what's going on inside of us.
So what did you see in Sirach to make you think of that?
Well, I don't even know if we're looking at the same reading. I'm looking at the first reading from Sunday's Mass. When a sieve is shaken, the husks appear. So do one's faults when one speaks. As the test of what the potter molds is in the furnace, so in tribulation is the test of the just. The fruit of a tree shows the care it has had. So too does one's speech disclose the bent of one's mind. Praise no one before he speaks, for it is then that people are tested. And man, is that true. You and I, we talk about these things all the time. No joke intended there, but I'm amazed at the power of our words and the phenomena that is in our creation, that just by the sheer nature of our bodies, that the exchange of air, the push of air as it goes through our larynx and out through the lips and out into the air, are a reflection of our very own soul. But it's always a matter of flexing our will, if we do, before we let that happen. And, I'm learning, probably too late, but learning, I have to practice it more steadily, that I really need to think before I talk. And I really need to make what I'm saying count for something good, and doing so in the eyes of Christ, to do so. In finishing creation, really, our words can be wicked, they could be an ambush, and that's paraphrasing from the Bible. I don't have that right in front of me. Or they can save lives. And I know this as a high school teacher. Some students come into the guidance office, or come into, some looking for urgent care because of something that was said to them. And it'll stay with them forever, especially in this malleable age that they're in,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. That's, listen, we talk about the trees. The passage has, the trees, reference the trees. Trees will, as the tree is bent, so shall it grow. Mm-hmm. How are the children, the students, how are they formed? What words did they hear from their parents? Assuming they heard words from their parents.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Did the parents, in terms of their speech, looking at this text from Sirach, did they bear fruit? Did their words bear fruit? And, your audience could say, if they paid attention to this reading, and let's say that was Sunday, and then Monday they heard a talk from Duddy, and they say, well, is this guy bearing good fruit? Because that's what Sirach is saying here. And you get to know somebody by what they say, and obviously by what they do as well. But still, a lot of times we're not doing anything. We don't get a chance to do things with people so often. It's just that we're saying, we have a conversation. You pass somebody by, whatever it is, you see somebody, you're not going to go, I don't know, plant trees, to stay with the tree theme. You're not going to do. Most of the time we are in conversation with people. That's our doing, so to speak. But obviously, if you get to know somebody and he or she said one thing, and then you get to know them a little better and you see them do another thing, okay, well, now that's not good fruit.
That's a beautiful point, and I'm glad you said that. And what I find in 40 years of coaching and being on the football field is what I have done in my past, maybe having been a football player, is probably known. I know it's known by the football players, so they know that I've been in the mud, I've been in the dirt. I don't really have to do that anymore to make my words count. But I find that at this age and moving into the sage age, and here we are with wisdom again, I find that my words create action, not so much in myself, but in the people that I'm speaking to. And that's what we have to hold ourselves accountable to. Sometimes our mouths, is just not sounds. It becomes action. It makes people realize action, visualize action. And our mouths create action in others, like stemming from like a planted emotion into the listener from what we say. And then the content is what really molds the action. And it can be both good and bad. And I firmly believe in that inflection, that caring inflection when it's necessary, or that commanding tone when necessary. And we need to remember that when we open our mouths. And that's what hit me after I dropped more off my wife, is that I have a commanding inflection in my voice when it's completely unnecessary. And I need to fix it. And this all came together so beautifully on my way home from Perth Amboy.
Well, think of what Jesus said. I mean, you said the planted when you were talking about, when you were just speaking about talking with people.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planting good seeds? Or does your audience, whether it's one person or 1,000, are they fertile soil? Again, the people in our audience will recognize that as Jesus' words. Is it on a rocky path? Do the seeds, does your action, do your words fall on sand, on good soil? Yeah. And so it's as always, it's a relationship. Are your words bearing good fruit? And fruit, of course, has seeds in them. And so then you're planting those seeds from the fruit that you're bearing, and you want to bear fruit in them. In your athletes, you want to bear good performances, and success. But if you're not cultivated properly, we're going to stay with this theme, because you got to have the seeds, but it's got to be in a good soil. And then, okay, who's going to cultivate that soil, and who's going to tend to that? Let's stay with, because when I was reading this, I thought of Adam in the garden, and the garden's filled with trees. The tree of life, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so that had to be, obviously it's the Garden of Eden, so it's soils, everything. They all bore good fruit. You can't have bad fruit in God's creation.
Right. Good point.
But
yeah.
But they can listen to God.
Yeah. And you know how it works in the Catholic Church too. The gospel coincides with that first reading beautifully. And the Gospel of Luke 6:39-45, I'm just going to go to the tail end of it. Our Lord Jesus Christ says, "No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart. And an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of." So that's the end of that. But I have a thought based on what you just said, and that totally coincides with what you're saying. But when we get a young person in our keep, and we are the keepers, we're the stewards, right? Especially where we're at in our age. And the older we get, the more that are in our keep. And our words motivate them to move their feet toward the good, or in the good, with the good. I think to create that fertile soil, which only God can do, but to be for God in helping creating that soil, they need to know that it's coming from them and their own will, so that they can take on that identity. And that's when the soil really begins to become captured within them. And that's when they really start to stand, erect on their feet and tall, and knowing that their actions are their actions, and they're not actions because of me. That I don't want a football player to do anything for me. In fact, when I hear a football coach say something to a player, "Would you just do this for me, please?" I got to correct that. I got to say, look, he's not here for you. We're here to send them to the next level so they can stand on their own 2 feet. It's for him, coach, that you are here. And That's what this Bible verse does for me. It's been a catalyst for me, the combination of the two. I also want to read one more thing I think that is hugely important. Why does purity of heart and speech matter so much? Because Jesus said this in Matthew 12:37, by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Bam. How about that?
Yeah. The word.
To help us decide our final judgment.
Yep, that's right. Did you say Lord, Lord, but you didn't follow him? Well, then he won't know you.
Amen.
So the words are important. Let's circle back to the beginning. I know you had mentioned something about express some interest in the sieve, and I mean, a sieve is shaken, okay, and so the husks appear. Part of that is, and then the third line, as the test of what the potter molds is in the furnace.
Yeah.
So that in tribulation is a test of the just. So this first half of this reading is trials, tribulations, suffering, and I want to read a quick reference by Elie Wiesel. He's a great Jewish writer. I believe the one book I read of his, The Night, but he was probably the best storyteller about the Holocaust.
Mm.
And he said what makes a Jew is this inability to quit hoping. Jewishness consists in going on, in persisting, in hoping. And that's, of course, that is throughout the Old Testament. And, that's probably not the ultimate experience or demonstration of evil in terms of magnitude. Well, in terms of the content and the magnitude of it, individual evil is horrible. Millions of different, and so, but they're the chosen people. But I guess when you become number one, right, you get the target on your back. Catholic Church, so to speak, is number one. Okay, the first church, the original church, the church, and the most populous, and so we have a target on our back. So with knowing you're in that position, then we get to both parts of Sirach where, okay, you got to be careful what you're saying, but you should be wise. Your words should reflect the wisdom of trials, tribulations, and suffering. You should be formed by the heat in that furnace. And if people in your life are shaking you, you're in that sieve and they're shaking the sieve and you're in that. That's turmoil. What's going to happen when you have that those trials and tribulations? And for many of the again the Psalms of lamentation, where are you, God?
Yeah.
And so I mean Jesus read a psalm on the cross, right? Why have you forsaken me? So he's wrestling with God. And but of course the greatest goodness came out of his suffering, and that's what the Psalms, and that's what I just read about Elie Wiesel, and never give up hope, and just persevere. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find it real quickly. I hope I can. Well, I sent you a passage, and our dear friend Deacon Chuck Kelly, passage from Ralph Waldo Emerson, a great American poet, and it's that great men aren't boasters; they're not buffoons. I'm paraphrasing this last part, but they recognize the trials of the terror of life. He wrote, but they man up is essentially what he said, what he wrote. They become the great men have demonstrated their greatness by persevering in the face of evil, by not quitting.
Yeah, let me read it. I found it.
Thanks.
You sent it to us today. I'm reading it right from your email. Great men have not been boasters or buffoons, but perceivers of the terror of life, and have manned themselves to face it.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you got that. Yeah, that's a good
great.
reader.
Well, I'm so glad you sent that.
I've read him.
That was strong.
I remember I was telling, I shared this story with Kevin, and then we got to wrap it up. But I was at when I was probably 17, 18, something like that. My family was at the dining room table, which was rare. It must have been a special day because we never ate at the dining room table except for holidays and whatnot. So my father was there, and he almost never ate with us. He almost ate by himself. He always ate by himself because I guess he didn't want to be around. He had enough of lunatics at work. He didn't want to eat more to deal with. And so I had done something. I'm not going to get into it now, but I had done something significant in my life, and it's still significant. He did not agree with it. He was very disappointed in me. And I'm not disappointed at all in what I did. And so I remember not long after he made a comment, I'm surprised. I don't think I couldn't have been close enough for his reach because I didn't lose consciousness. But I said, whoso would be a man would be a nonconformist. And that's a memorable passage from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I was reading him at the time. And I remember my brother said, I don't know him. So I shared that with Kevin. And Kevin said, "Oh, I wish I was there to experience that." So anyway, I hadn't thought about Ralph Waldo Emerson in a long time, but it was great to see that. And that was, I'm reading a biography, the latest biography on Martin Luther King, and that passage was in that book, and I read it late last night. So I'm so glad you found it.
So fitting, yeah. That was great that you sent that. It's just a wonderful part of our friendship. Thanks for sending it.
Thanks, buddy.
Beautiful. I was going about 65 miles an hour on the New Jersey Parkway, and after I read that, I put it up to 80. And I'm like,
all right, what's coming up next there, buddy?
All right, guys, stay tuned for The Angelus and your prayer intentions with our good friend Peter and Jemmy.
WQPHradio.org. Thank you for your support, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome anything you can do for us. And thanks to Marianne, Jean, and her great questions and comments that she's had. And James, Tom, and the rest of the crew. So thank you, Danny. God bless you, buddy.
Thank you, Tom. God bless you, Tom. And God bless you all.
Thank you for listening to The 13th Apostle with Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey. For more information on Dan, visit his website at www.danduddy.com or email dcduddy@gmail.com. Tom's website is faithpilgrims.com or email trcaffrey@faithpilgrims.com. How about you? Will you be the 13th Apostle?